Good day, guys. Austin here, and in this one today, we're going to be looking at the EPSXE emulator. Now, this emulates the PlayStation 1, a long and forgotten console, which was one of my favourites. Now, I know there's about 1,000, probably billions, if not godzillion versions of people showing you how to set this emulator up, but what they don't do is show you how to do it properly with shaders to get the full advantage of your computer and to show all the features, especially the new ones which have been added to this emulator, because they shouldn't be forgotten. And that's what I do, I bring things back. So here we go, guys, let's get stuck into the PlayStation 1. Okay then, so here we are, the EPSXE emulator. Now, today's tutorial, we're not just going to show you how to install it. I mean, let's face it, it's not exactly rocket science. You just put the files in there, set it up, and Bob's your uncle. A bit more, obviously, configuration to do, but you can get this up and going in no time. And it's been covered loads and loads of time. But what nobody does is actually take you into detail on how to get this set up properly for your machine. Not just in terms of actually getting the games running, but in terms of actually emulating the games to the next level, because there's so many filters you can use, there's so many shaders, there's a lot of enhancements that's been brought out, which is one of the greatest effects which came with the evolution of this emulator. I mean, this emulator came out in what, 2000? It's not open source, it's not like Dolphin, it's not like PCSX2 or something like that. They're open source and people can jump on the bandwagon. There's new releases, you know, 5 times a day, never mind a year. With this emulator, you are lucky to get a release or a new build once every year or something. But the actual emulator isn't what makes this so special. It's the plugins which utilizes the emulator, and that's what's not covered in all these tutorials and guides and stupid things which are typed in Notepad instead of people using mics. So frustrating that when you go into someone's tutorial and you have to wait for them to type it out. Jesus wept, stop it, for God's sake, stop it. Anyway, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you how to use the plugins I'm going to produce for you and give you the plugins and all the ones that you will need, and then we're going to go that one stage further and actually configure the plugins themselves to use even more plugins and shaders and all that kind of good stuff. So we're not actually just getting games running, we are taking this to the limit. Push it to the limit. Anyway, enough of my waffles and my rambles. Let's actually get on and do this. Okay then, well, enough waffling. Let's actually get stuck in and get this set up first off. Right, this is not exactly rocket science, and you've probably been down this road before, but just so we know you're all singing up the hymn sheet, let's do it together and let's do it properly. Right. First things first, in the description down below there will be a link, more than likely to a mega site. Within that mega site there will be a download. Download that to your computer. It will be in a 7-zip format, so I implore you, I plead with you, please use 7-zip to extract, decompress, uncompress, whatever the fanboys say about that kind of process. If you use any other program or feature, then I can't vouch for it. In other words, often you get errors when you use different kind of programs with different kind of formats. Use 7-zip, guys. Let's err on the side of caution on that one. Okay, once you've done that, you'll end up with a folder similar to this one, which is the EPSXE pack. Now leave it there. Don't jump the gun yet, guys. Let's focus on what we're doing. Now what we need to do is get the emulator itself. So, in again, the description down below, there'll be a link, more than likely, to this website, which is the official EPSXE website. Now on there you will find the latest builds. At this moment in time, the latest build for me is EPSXE version 1.9.25. I'm going to be using the Windows version. This does not take up much resources at all. In fact, I believe somewhere on here there's a compatibility thing. To be honest, guys, you could probably get away with this on your dad's laptop. You're going to have no problems whatsoever, as long as you are not playing on a computer from the dark ages. Right, all you need to do then is download it. You'll end up with it in a RAR format, I believe this is. RAR! Oh, my computer is running super slow in terms of internet today. I should have really downloaded this beforehand. ever to download a megabyte. Less than a megabyte. There we go anyway. Unrar it then. In fact, it's a zip file, isn't it? But I'm using WinRAR to open it. I've done some of the devil today, going against my own words and using a different program to extract this. Right then, so what we're going to do then is, I've already made a folder. I've labeled it EPSXE 1.9.25. I'm sure I don't need to teach you how to make folders, guys. Once you've done that then, grab all your files from the extracted path, drop them inside whatever folder you're running. I would label your folders correctly. You know, it's not exactly a big thing. It sounds unimportant at this time. But trust me, guys, once you get into the emulator scene and you start building up your collection of emulators, then not only will you end up with loads of emulators, but you will more than likely end up with loads of different versions. So it would label them as the version of the emulator also. So when you are going back, you can then switch between an older version and a newer version, because some games, especially with some of these emulators, they're not as compatible. Even with like the latest ones, you may need to downgrade to play your favorite games, let's say. So make sure you label your emulators properly. Anyway, we digress. Let's actually do our fixes then. Okay, so at this point, let's move these out of the way. I put some games in here so we can test them in a second. But now we should have our EPSXE pack and our emulator files themselves. What I need you to do then is go into here, select all the files and folders, drag them over into your EPSXE folder itself. Yes, replace. Now we can get rid of that, and we can get rid of our folder if you wish, but I'm going to keep it there for now. Okay then, so you'll end up with this. This is basically all the files and folders that EPSXE uses. Now, there's not much you need to mess around with here apart from the actual program itself, so let's actually boot this up. Now, EPSXE is a funny beast to tame. You see, each time you play this on a fresh computer, even if you've already got it installed on a hard drive, say for example an external hard drive, if you was to then switch that external hard drive over to another computer which has never played this emulator before, it will not run. Well, in fact, it will run. It will launch it, but it will ask you to go through the config menu, which has probably popped up anew at this point. So because I've already run this, it's made files and folders within my registry folders and also within my documents folders. It's a good thing and a bad thing, depends on which way you look at it. But the downside, the caveat to this is, whenever you play this on a new computer, you will have to set it up each time. So yes, it keeps them on your computer all the time, but like I said, the caveat is if you then put your install, your build, or your emulator onto a fresh computer, you're going to have to do the initial setup again. It's not too bad. Let's go through it. It's not rocket science. We've got people in Notepad showing you how to do this. That's how advanced it is. Okay then, so you'll be greeted more than likely with a window popping up straight away looking like this, and the first one's a load of gump probably blowing their own trumpets and licking their own ass, so we'll skip that one for now. Okay, next one then, we've got configuration and BIOS. Right, with the newest build you will end up with one already built into the actual emulator, which is the HLE BIOS. Excuse me. Now, that HLE BIOS, unlike previous versions, is actually usable and compatible with games. You can actually launch it without needing the proper PlayStation BIOS itself. However, some games are not compatible with that BIOS, so to get all singing, all dancing, you're going to have to select this, which is the 1001 USA, and you can tell because it says recommended. It's actually informing you that this is the recommended BIOS. Thank you, EPSXE, thank you. Okay then, I've included in this a lot of plugins for you to choose from for your own pleasure. Peruse, have a look around, meet yourself at home. There's loads of different plugins for you to choose. However, for this install, I'm going to be using the one which is the most recommended and what I would say in my eyes is the most useful in terms of configuring and getting the most from this emulator. So whereas I normally ask you to choose the DirectX 3D or DirectX versions of the plugins, especially like with PCSX, Dolphin and all that kind of stuff. What I want you to use in this instance is the OpenGL 2 driver 2.9, this one here. Now I'm going to show you how to configure this. At a later date, you can then go into here, have a mess around and see if any of the other features and any of the other plugins will actually aid you going forward. But for now, we're going to use Pete's OpenGL driver 2.9. Okay, what we're going to do then is click on the config tab and it'll bring you to something like this. Now, as you can see, Jesus, it's already got mine configured. For me to reset this back to default, I'd have to jump through so many hoops, and to be honest, I just want to get this video out. So what I'm going to do now is set it back to default, how you would probably be going. The only thing that we're going to be messing around with is probably the resolution and a couple of tick boxes. But for now, I'm going to set this back to default. 000. None. Jesus. None. And none. Don't want any of these tick boxes. Basically, what we want to do is first off make sure that this emulator is running properly. So I've put mine back to default. If this is the first time you've installed yours too will be set to default, as you can see here. The only difference is you will probably end up with 640 by 480 up at the top here, because that's the default. Well, it's not the default, that's the maximum resolution that the PlayStation 1 could run at. The actual default is a lot less than that in most cases. It's on a game by game basis. In fact, the lowest it goes is 250p. 250p. That's like playing it on your watch nowadays. Jesus. Anyway, so make sure you're back to default. Make sure these are unticked. The only ones you want to be messing around with is make sure in the MISC here, MDEC filter. Basically, what that means is when you get the videos that start when the game starts, and the videos which start off when you're in the middle of the game and pop up and immerse you in the atmospherics of the game and tell you the story, the trepid tales of your heroes and villains and the tales of woe, that will be done more than likely in a video thing, because that's the way it was back then. Now, if you wasn't to tick that, and if you had a different resolution other than the one that was standard, which is 640 very low, 480, you would probably get glitches, errors, and the emulator wouldn't know what to do. So by applying this filter, basically it helps out with those movies and gets it running kind of stable in most cases. Okay, the only other thing that you want to be changing here is the desktop resolution. Now, let's not approach this in the same way as Dolphin and PCSX2 or anything like that. We don't want to be aiming for 4K. These games were originally made, like I said, in a maximum of 480p. 480p, that's very low. So when you're blowing this up onto a big screen, the last thing you want is to show the errors and, well, the errors and the mistakes that the actual games had back in the day, because they were very rough. You've got to think back, this is like 1995, and games are not that advanced. This is the first console to actually bring in 3D games to the masses. Yes, you could emulate it on your, I don't know, you could play it on your SNES and you could play it on your Mega Drive, 3D games, but they weren't, yes, they were, but they weren't proper. This is the first console to actually bring it to the mainstream and get them running to the full potential. This is what sparked it all off. So the games were very, I don't know, rough around the edges, and what you don't want to do is heighten that. Yes, I will show you how to apply filters and all kinds of stuff in just a second, but for now, trust me guys, you don't want to go any further than your maximum resolution. And what I like to do is find the happy medium ground between my maximum resolution and the intended resolution of the game, just to give it that little bit of blur. You know, I don't want to see the edges, the sharp artifacts which these games are. Trust me guys, if you played it on the emulator and you put it all the way up to maximum, then you're gonna, well, my TV is 4K, so I can literally go up to 4K graphics on this, and trust me, it does not look pretty. So what I like to do is keep it around here. Now the other thing that you need to take into consideration is that this is also the aspect ratio, so when it's actually playing the game. So in just a second when we start playing, back in the day, the PlayStation run on a 4:3 screen. That means that basically a lot of the TVs were not widescreen, so all the resolutions that this console had were all 4:3 screens. So if you was to set a widescreen resolution at this point, it would stretch the actual screen across your widescreen. Now that sounds good because basically you're filling up the whole screen, but I hate that, because if there's one thing I hate more than black bars on the side of the screen, it's having my old characters stretched across the screen and looking warped and looking unattractive in my eyes. That's my personal opinion. If you like to stretch it, go ahead, choose whatever you want, but I like to choose a 4:3 resolution. And if you're unsure about that, wiki it, Google it, whatever. There's loads of places you can find out resolutions, but it's pretty much common sense. So I'm going to use this one. It seems to be a happy medium for me. I cannot guarantee this for you. You don't really want to be going over the resolution of your native, your native resolution of the TV or monitor, whatever it is you're using, because then you'll get some kind of glitches and errors. So you want to go below or even with what you've already got. Yeah, so I think we've covered that enough. The rest of it, 32-bit. Leave all these as standard. We just want to prove that it's working, so we're playing this on minimum effort at this moment in time. The other and last thing that we need to do at this point is where it says frame rate. You probably got show frames per second on startup. Untick that. You don't really want to mess around with that kind of crap. And tick the use frames per second limit, and where it says frames per second limit and it's got the numbers in brackets, tick that also. Now what you want to do here is put this to 63 or 60, whatever you want. I do 63. Now I know it sounds like a complete random number, but because this emulator is so, the emulator is so good and computers nowadays are so good also, if you leave it so there's no limit, basically you're using your CPU to emulate frames that haven't been, that aren't needed. You can't even see them. You're just working your CPU for no reason whatsoever. You got to think that this is a PlayStation 1 game. You know, 30 frames per second was a jolly back then. So having up to 60 and 60 plus is a bonus, a massive bonus as it is, and you will not be seeing the full potential even close to 60 frames per second anyway. In fact, probably a lot lower than that. 30 frames per second is more than enough, but we want to keep it smooth, we want to keep it a happy medium, so to stop lags and spikes and making it a comfortable frame rate without taxing your CPU too much or put it under any undue stress which isn't needed, give it a limit, and I would say the sweet spot for me is always 63 frames per second. Random, I know, but it's probably just my OCD kicking in. The rest of it then, keep it as it is, keep it all default, just make sure you've got the MDC ticked there, and that's about it. Basically we're going to launch this in native resolution, native kind of looks first off, to make sure it works. Unless you've got a Stone Age computer, you should have no difficulties running this whatsoever. So once you've done that, then click OK, and now we're going to go in for the rest of the setup. Sound then. SPU, yeah, basically there are some plugins for extra sound compatibility, but this has been advanced so much now that, you know, again, it's PlayStation games. The most you're going to get is probably stereo. So there's not much incompatibility with most games. This will cover your back for most of them. It's that thing that you can't even go in and change any of the settings because it's not really needed. There's not much messing around to go with this. Next then, asking you for a DVD drive, a CD drive should I say. Basically this is the plugin that controls emulating the information of your games. We'll cover this in more detail probably in a later video because there's not much to go into in this. We just want to get our ISOs running at this point. Our disk images. We'll cover that again in a second also. So click next on that point, and here's where you do your controllers. Now you are supposed to turn your controller on before you start actually booting this emulator up. If I was to turn mine on now, basically it wouldn't recognize it. It would go in here, and when I started to do my buttons, the button presses wouldn't be recognized by the emulator, and it would just be blank every time I'm trying to change something. So what we're going to have to do is Once we've completed it, exit the emulator, boot it back up again, and then do the controls. You might be lucky enough and have yours plugged in or already switched on. At this point, go through the simple procedure of setting them all up. Okay, next. That's it, done. Basically saying well done. It's tipped its hat towards us and said have fun with your new emulator. And I'm going to say thank you, EPSXE guys. Thank you for that tip of the hat. Okay, next thing then, go into config. Pad config if you've not done already. In fact, I need to restart it, don't I? I don't even listen to my own tutorial. That's how advanced I am. I should get Notepad out and start doing this. Gamepad, port 1. Okay, so now at this point, I would then be able to go through the process of changing all these keys. It's just a case of clicking on there and pressing the button which you want to be emulated on your pad. I'm not sure, I use 360 pads, but I'm told that almost anything that is recognized already by Windows can be used in this, including keys, but to your heart's will, guys. Okay, this drop down box on the left and right here, it gives you different options for different types of controllers which you can emulate. Obviously, in an ideal world, what we'd put down there is like dual shock or a dual analog at least or something, so we can make full potential of our 360 pads. The issues we have then is that some games, because they're very old, and this is like the first time that dual pads and all that kind of stuff started to happen, is some games don't recognize that kind of format and you'll end up with problems. I'd say 90% of all the games that were ever released on the PlayStation 1 are all compatible with just the normal digital controller. So to stop you running into those errors, I would say as default, set up the digital. If you then want to go into more, I don't know, advanced settings and play more lucrative games that take full advantage of these sticks and all kinds of stuff, then do it on a game by game basis. But for now, I'd stay digital. Stay digital, man. Okay, easy enough. Click out of there. And that's it, guys. That is now the emulator set up, to be honest, in a kind of default way. So it's not exactly rocket science. I probably waffled a bit more than it was, but now we're going to go into more detail. Now I've got you up to the baseline, and I know you should be where you're at. Now we can start to mess around. Right, so first off, let's have a look at some games. Games themselves, they come in kind of disc images. All my games are zipped up, or should I say 7 zipped up in my games collection. That's because my front end can uncompress or decompress the game and then run it from the files once it's decompressed. The problem is the emulator can't do this, so it needs the actual raw disk images. And with PlayStation 1, they usually come in bin queue format. Now, point to note at this point, and a big massive warning, is the fact that this emulator, those images, that format of bin queue, do not like to be renamed unless you know what you're doing. If you have to rename it for any need, you know, you want to rename your name to go in the collection because you've got a random one that you downloaded, look at my bin queue video. It will tutor you how to rename them properly. The description down below, there'll be a link there. Watch and view to your heart's content, but for those of others of you, just make sure you don't rename them because it will mess up. Basically, every game in bin queue will have 2, or should have 2 files working in conjunction with each other, and one of them within the files themselves is labeled to work with the other. If you rename one of those, then basically what will happen is the names, the files will not be able to find its accompanied file. So please take that on board. Right, so we've covered that. Here is some games that I have uncompressed or decompressed for me to test out with this emulator. Not exactly a massive collection, but it's enough to me to know that I can get things working and give you an example of how to do things. Right, so let's actually get these running then. So file, to run a image, what you need to do is file, run ISO. Mine's already mapped to the location of these images, which is on my desktop basically. And what can we play first? Let's play Crash Bandicoot. I believe the US amongst us call it. We call it Crash Bandicoot. I don't know why. Okay, so all you need to do is choose the queue file, and boom, you're in. Now, it probably look horrible at this point, all blocky, pixelated. That's if it works. Please work. Yes, there we go. This is basically a step up from the actual original game, because imagine this was being emulated in, I don't know, or played maximum 640p. Now what I've done also is, guys, I've taken the volume off, so don't worry, the volume is emulated. But if I was to show this on YouTube, it would get picked up for having music from this game or whatever. So yeah, as you can see, it's all there, it's all on its full glory. It's actually been heightened because the resolution has been turned up, so it's actually a bit better than the originally intended game. But because I'm playing this on a 60-inch screen, I would have to do this anyway to make it look kind of bearable. Otherwise it would look like Pac-Man to me on this massive screen. So yes, we can play this, we can have a look around, and it's working. And at this point, if this is all you're after, then you would probably leave us here and say, well done, you've just shown me how to do it properly, but I'm happy. But we want to take this another stage further. Next, what we want to do is actually heighten this to get HD graphics. That's going to be our next level. And then we're going to go even further into this and take it to the next level after that. But for now, here is the example of the game running. It's perfectly okay. It's as it was back in the old PlayStation days. Everything is cool and groovy. Take notice of the edges of everything. It's all very pixelated. So what we can do now is exit out. Now what we're going to do is stump this up. We're going to take it to the next level. So go into your config, back into well, we can't do that because every time you exit a game, it doesn't let you mess around. So you've got to exit out of EPSXE properly. So let's boot it up again. Go into config, go into video. Now you'd end up with this kind of screen, which is just basically a way to get into the visualization kind of stuff. We're going to be configuring the select config for main video plugin, which as we selected before was 2.9 OpenGL2. So open this up, you greet it with the exact same screen as we had before for configuring things. Now this is where you want to start tweaking. Now I cannot say the recommended settings for this. It's all system specific and even more importantly user specific, because I don't know what kind of images you want to go for. But for me, I'm going to try and get this to like a HD kind of look. In other words, it's the exact same game, but it's just cleaner, if you get what I mean. I don't want to make it too crisp because then it starts looking, I don't know, it looks silly, PlayStation games with it too crisp. So what I want to do now is start heightening this up a little bit. So I'm gonna, because this emulator was made so long ago, a lot of these where it says extreme high, ultra high and stuff, you would think you need a top-end computer to get this kind of stuff. No guys, this is looking at, as long as you've got even a very dated computer in terms of gaming computer, you can run this on maximum and you'd have no problems whatsoever. It is not a very taxing emulator at all, but I cannot guarantee what kind of impact it will make on your oldish computers out there. So yeah, give it a go, step it up a notch. So what I want to do is go very high on this. I'm going to go ultra high on this. See, it's asking on ultra high, it's asking a 256 megabyte card is recommended to give us ultra high. Now that may worry some people. What you got to think about is put it into context. A normal standard gaming card nowadays comes with about a gig minimum, so that's like what, 4 times the amount of what it's asking for on an ultra high. So don't worry too much. Even an embedded card will have more memory than this, so you shouldn't need to worry as long as you've got some kind of card of some kind of sorts. Even if it's an embedded one on your computer, then you should be okay. People's gaming on the dad's laptops, can't guarantee. Let's hope your dad's good at gaming or has an up-to-date-ish laptop. Stretching mode. What I want to do is keep this kind of standard because I want to keep the intended size, but I want to kind of stretch it to the size of the window. So I want to keep everything in aspect, but I don't want it to stretch to the sides. So because we've put a native resolution at the top here, then when I say to stretch this, what will happen is it will give me the maximum size in height and it will stop keeping the aspect ratio. So in height it should hopefully take me to the top and the bottom of the screen, but I will obviously end up with black bars on the left and right because I want to keep the aspect ratio with the desktop resolution. Okay then, render mode. Render mode. Can't remember where I put this actually. I'm gonna go number 1. Why not? Cannot remember where I put it on there. Texture. Yeah, I'm gonna go all the way with this. Push it to the limit. Push it to the limit. I've been watching Scarface the other day, so I've got that song in my head. Yeah, stretch. Do whatever you want. Put me on maximum. Okay, leave the frame rate as it was, as we talked about. I'm not going to go into that again. And compatibility-wise, let's have a look. Yeah, whatever. Put it to maximum. Boom. I'm not even going to let this worry me. I'm just going to smash everything on maximum and dance for the devil. Right. So that now should have everything looking smooth. At this point, don't mess around with full screen filters. I will cover that in depth in just a second. That's when we take this to the next level. Right, now when I play this game, you will notice the difference. Trust me. So press OK, File, Run ISO. Now it will be identical, the same resolution, and it will be, you know, almost identical as the game it was. However, you will notice the edges and the pixelization, or whatever it is you say that word, will be far more crisp. The edges will be a lot much nicer to view. Yeah, we're looking good so far. We're looking good in terms of it's filling the screen. So that's a nice thing. We'll have the black bars. There's no music again. But even as you can see on that little doghouse there that's going on, I can see the edges are not pixelated anymore. So it has done what I intended it to do, which is basically keep the original graphics but clean yourself up a little bit, because you're looking a bit mucky. So as you can see, it's kind of smoothed itself out a little bit. It's looking a lot more crisp and cleaner without taking away the aesthetics of the original game. Just the way I like things. So if it was to press start, jump in a quick game, just to show you what's going on here. Even the map itself, you can see a lot more of the detail in there, because the pixels are not, well, they're not blocking the view. It looks a lot more crisp and clean. But the actual overall feel of the game is still the same. You see what I mean, guys? We're looking good here. We're looking very good. Yeah. So that is the game. We've taken it up to kind of HD graphics here, and we're happy. This should not tax your computer too much. Again, unless you've got like a Stone Age computer, but as you can see on the edges and stuff, you know, it's very crisp, it's very clean, but it looks the same as how the game did originally, which is what I like to play in, to be honest. Okay, so we've got that sorted. We've now got up to HD graphics. What I want to show you now is plugins and have a play. Let's actually take this to the next level of graphics. So at this point, if you are happy with how you're gaming, with how you're getting on, you can probably walk away with it. But what I want to do is show you how to use these plugins. Now, in those files that I asked you to put into your EPSXE folder is my personal collection of filter plugins. So as we play our games, they will look completely different. Well, not completely different. Obviously, you can still recognize the game, but the actual atmospherics and the feel and the way it's displayed and rendered onto your screen is completely different in terms of color, fidelity, and overall appearance. So let's actually show you rather than talk to you about it. It's probably the easiest way to go. So again, I've got to exit out of here to actually go back in so I can change settings. Here we go. Config, video, configure. Right, so basically we've got our graphics up to a kind of HD state right now, and there's not much that we need to do up the top here. Now what we need to do is focus on the full screen filters. This is where we start to apply more in-depth settings, let's say, to render this at a different fidelity and feel. So first thing you want to do is tick the screen filtering box here. Now the one below it is the shader effects. That's what we're going to start bringing into this now. Now each shader, let me show you, in the packs that I downloaded, or I gave you, should I say, is a plugin folder. Within the plugins folder, this is my collection of shaders that I've accumulated throughout my time in the emulation stuff, and each one of these will give your games a different feel, a different kind of appearance, and you know, you can make your own You know, there's different tutorials out there, so you can make your own kind of stuff on here. But these are the ones that I like to play with. I've got my personal opinion on how I like my games to look. Yours may be completely different, completely transforming the game. If anything, I like to give it the retro look, but still keeping the crisp fidelity of it all. So I like to find the sweet spot somewhere. Some people like it to look completely retro. Some people like to completely transform it and make it look totally crisp HD, futuristic almost. There's loads of different effects we can do here. So this is where it's basically up to your heart's content to actually mess around, experiment, and feel the way that the game looks and what suits your needs and best interprets your interpretation of the game. Right, so the way we do this then is most of these will have set up the way I'm going to show you now. However, some of them, have a look inside the folders, have a look inside the actual files and stuff. If there's any different settings, usually I try to include a little text file. I can't remember which ones have them, which ones don't. There's not that many that would require it. But those that have a text file will tell you certain settings that you may need to put in here to get it to work to how it was intended. You wouldn't have to worry about it unless it doesn't work. Then look at it, if that makes sense. But I'll show you now how to get it working the way 99% of these shaders work. Okay, so on here you want to pick 5 GL slang files. On here you want to take it up to maximum. Take it to the max. And that's it really. That is all you need to do in terms of settings. Now what you need to do is choose which actual shader you want to use for rendering your games. So all you need to do is click on that little random box, which gives you no it gives you no idea what you're actually opening, and you agree to with a little screen like this, custom shader file directory. And what you want to do is hunt down wherever you installed your emulator. So mine's on my desktop, EPSXE 0.9.25. Plugins, because that's where we put it. And here you go. Here's the big long list of, well, the games. Oh, sorry, the shaders. So all you need to do is have a mess around and find one which suits your graphical needs. So try and find one which completely transforms it, so I can show you. So I can show you what we're looking at. Yeah, let's have a look at cartoon shaders. Let's give this a go. I've got no idea if this will work. I just randomly chosen that one. Be aware that not all of those shaders will work with this emulator. That's my, because a lot of these shaders and things like this work on other emulators also. So that's just my collection. 99% of them will work. However, knowing my luck now, I'll probably come across the one that doesn't. Okay, so go into File, run ISO again, and just so we can compare game to game, we're going to do Crash Bandicoot, as you Americans say, again. Come on, got this. So as you can see, we're kind of looking different already. I don't know if those of you who took note of how this looked, now it's looking completely different. This is kind of pushing it to the extreme. This isn't. But what I wanted to do was actually exaggerate the way the game displays, so you can see that there's actually a difference. Because some of these changes can be very subtle, and some of these changes can be almost completely transforming the actual graphics and the way they're rendered on the screen. So as you can see with this one, everything's smooth. The kind of, I don't know, the outlines are all got black lines all over them. They've got the stroke effect on it to give the cartoony look. And if you look at the colours, there's kind of a metallic glow, and they look kind of washed out. So yes, it's very noticeable on this one. I by no means would probably use this, especially on a game such as this one, but it may suit other games. It may suit some people's setups. This may make you fall in love with this game all over again. But like I said, there's hundreds, there is thousands of plugins, shaders, all kinds of settings there for you to play with. And if you want to adapt those, or if you want to even make yours from scratch, there is loads of tutorials out there on websites to aid you in your quest for making more shaders, plugins, and all kinds of good stuff like that. Right, so I hope that that has actually answered some of your questions today, guys. I really do, because this emulator, it's not my first choice. It really isn't. For the PlayStation 1, I will use RetroArch as my go-to emulator, but that's my interpretation. That's how I like to play it, because for me, I like the more retro side of things, and in terms of retro looks, compatibility, RetroArch ticks all the boxes for me. My second choice would be Xebra, or Zebra, however you pronounce that name. That is an awesome PlayStation 1 emulator, but in terms of graphics, there's nothing there. Yes, you can mess around with the resolution, there's a few settings, but you can't get the overall feel and change the aesthetics of the actual visualizations that are made. But in terms of compatibility, it's almost 100%. Every game that I've thrown at that, it plays, and it plays flawlessly. The problem that EPSXE has is compatibility. Yes, in terms of visualizations, nothing can come close. And if you just want to play the more popular games, I will doubt that you will ever feel any hindrance to this whatsoever. But in terms of graphics and stuff, this is second to none. EPSXE really does focus more on visualizations in terms of getting it the way you want to play this game, rather than compatibility. So if you want all the games, please think outside the box. Look at my channel. There's loads of tutorials there that will aid you in your quest for complete PlayStation 1 dominance. But if you just want HD graphics, then this is the way to go, guys. It really is. This is an awesome emulator, and I tip my hat to the team that actually brought this to us. Well, I think I've licked ass enough in this one, guys. But yeah, great emulator, a fantastic emulator, and I implore you to at least give it a try. Now I've given you the tools to actually get the extra effects, which is what makes everybody tick this box for this emulator. But thank you for stopping by, guys. Please, as always, like, subscribe, share, do all the things that people normally do for YouTube stuff. It really does help out, and it gives me the sign and the indication that I really am helping people out there change their stuff. If you've got any ideas, or if you want to cover any, or you want me, should I say, to cover any emulation woes or troubles or special emulators themselves, give me a shout. I'll try my best to endeavor to get them going. I'm trying my best to get the Hyperspin PlayStation 2 build out. The problem is that the module, when I've been checking, it needs updating. It's not fully compatible with the latest version of the PCSX2 or the PlayStation 2 emulator. As soon as that's sorted, I will do my Hyperspin PlayStation 2. Then it's time for the new vote. The new vote, which will bring you a new Hyperspin system. So I'll release, I don't know, probably about 10 different options. Go to my Google Plus place, vote on the one that you want to do. But give me some ideas in the comments on this video, guys. What would you like next in the Hyperspin build? It's up to you. I just do what you want, and we take it from there, shall we? Thank you very much. I'm not going to waffle anymore, guys. You guys have been great as always. I really do appreciate all the stuff that you do for me, and most of all, making this a great scene to be in, because it makes me proud. It brings a tear to my eye when I see all the help that's going on between all you guys. You know, this is all about enjoyment, hobbies, games, keeping things positive and enjoying what we do. So thank you very much for all the help that you've put in, and most of all, guys, you have a great day. I really do hope you do. Laters, guys.